There's a specific kind of trust that takes years to build, not the kind you decide on, the kind that just settles in, quietly like furniture. You stop noticing, you stop questioning certain things, you stop asking, you just believe. And then one day, something small doesn't add up, and you realize you were never trusting the person. You were trusting the version of them you needed to be real. That's where this story begins. This is the story of Victor Lane and his wife Serena Lane. On a Tuesday in late February, Victor submitted what he described as the hardest letter he'd ever written, a divorce filing printed and signed at a FedEx office near his job on his lunch break. He said he sat in his car for about 12 minutes after, not crying, just staring at the dashboard. The night before, he had done something quiet and deliberate. He'd made a single phone call to the leasing company. One call. That was all it took. I didn't feel angry, he said. I felt like I'd been reading the wrong book for 3 years and I had just turned to the correct page. This is what he shared. According to him, it didn't start with a fight. It started with a receipt. Here's how he told it. This is how it happened. I'll try to explain it the way I remember. The receipt was from a restaurant I'd never heard of. That was the first thing. Not dramatic, not scandalous. Just a folded piece of paper that fell out of the pocket of Serena's jacket when I was taking it to the dry cleaner. I almost didn't look at it. I almost just set it on the counter and kept moving. But I looked. Dinner for 2, a Wednesday, 1 glass of wine, 1 cocktail, $64 before tip. I thought about it for a moment. Then I put it back in the pocket, took the jacket downstairs, dropped it in the dry cleaning bag, and I told myself it was nothing. We had been married for 3 years at that point. Together for 5. Serena and I met the way most people meet now, through a friend at a birthday party, where neither of us particularly wanted to be. She was standing near the window with a drink she kept swirling but not finishing. I remember thinking she looked like someone who had somewhere better to be. Turns out she did. She just hadn't figured out where yet. We worked well early on. She was a graphic designer with a good eye and a low tolerance for nonsense. I was an operations manager at a mid-sized logistics company. Steady income. Not exciting, but stable. We had a 2-bedroom apartment in a part of the city that was almost nice. I leased her a car when hers broke down, a white Hyundai Tucson. I put it in my name because her credit had taken a hit the year before. She said she'd refinance it into her name when things evened out. That never happened. But I didn't push it. The marriage was fine. Not great, not terrible. Fine in the way that makes you feel guilty for wanting something more, because nothing is actually wrong. We had routines, Sunday grocery runs, takeout on Fridays, separate shows on separate devices most evenings. We were polite with each other. We weren't cold, exactly. More like, careful. I don't know when the warmth started going. Looking back, I think it was gradual enough that neither of us named it. We just kept adjusting. Kept moving the furniture around in the same room without ever asking if we should change rooms. Serena picked up freelance work about 8 months before the receipt. She mentioned it casually. A few design clients on the side, branding projects, some packaging work. Made sense. She was talented, and she'd always complained that her day job didn't let her do anything interesting. I supported it, completely. I told her to go for it. The first time I noticed money I couldn't account for was October. She came home with a new bag, not extravagant, a tan leather tote, maybe $200. I asked about it and she said it was from a client bonus, a thank you gift kind of thing. I accepted that. Then in November there was a new coat. Then in December, 2 weeks before Christmas, she transferred $800 into our joint account and said it was from a big project she'd completed. I didn't ask for details. I thanked her. We went out for dinner that night, a place I chose, not $64. January came. I found an unopened box of perfume in her closet when I was looking for a phone charger she'd borrowed. The brand wasn't something she usually wore. The price sticker was still on the bottom. $220. I asked about it. A client gave it to me, she said, as a gift. I haven't opened it because I don't really like the scent. Something about that answer sat wrong. Not because it was impossible. Clients give gifts. It happens. But the way she said it, too smooth, too complete. Like she'd already run through the question in her head before I asked it. I didn't say that. I said, oh, okay. She smiled and went back to whatever she was doing on her laptop. And I stood there in the hallway for a second, holding the charger, not quite ready to walk away from something I couldn't name. Part 2. February started the same way most months did. Serena left early on Tuesdays and Thursdays. She said those were her client call days. She liked doing them before noon when her mind was clearest. She'd be gone by 8 and back by early afternoon, sometimes with coffee, sometimes a little distracted. I was usually at work by then, so I didn't think much about it. But around the second week of February, things started to feel slightly off rhythm. Not dramatically, just small things. She'd come home and go straight to her phone. Not frantically, just quietly, like checking on something. She laughed at a message once and then glanced up and saw me watching and put the phone face down on the counter. "Work thing," she said. I nodded. She started wearing nicer clothes on those Tuesday and Thursday mornings. Not formal, just put together. A blouse she hadn't worn in a while. Earrings she usually saved for dinners out. I told myself people dress up for client meetings. I also told myself a lot of things that month. There was one evening, a Thursday, when she came home and I noticed she smelled different. Not like perfume exactly, more like the specific smell of somewhere that wasn't our apartment. A restaurant, maybe. Something enclosed and warm. I didn't say anything. I made dinner. We ate. She talked about a project she was working on. Something about a restaurant rebrand in the Arts District. I asked a few questions. She answered them. Everything was technically normal. Later that night, she fell asleep before me. I lay there in the dark thinking about the receipt from March, the dinner for two, the $64. I thought about the bag, the coat, the perfume. I thought about the Thursday clothes. And I thought about the fact that I had never once asked to see her freelance invoices. Never asked the names of any of these clients. Never asked anything, really, because asking felt like accusing. And I wasn't the kind of person who accused people without proof. But at some point, not asking starts to feel like a choice you're making for someone else. I want to be honest. Part of me didn't want to know. That's the part no one talks about. There's a version of you that will do almost anything to preserve something familiar. Even when familiar has started to feel like a performance you're both too tired to stop. I'd like to say I was fully awake to what was happening. I wasn't. I noticed. I cataloged. I pushed it back down. And then I kept going. We had a decent weekend that month. Visited her sister on Saturday. Watched a movie Sunday night that we both actually liked. She fell asleep on my shoulder on the couch around 10:30. I didn't move for a while. I just sat there. I don't know if I was holding on or just not ready to let go. Maybe both. It's strange, looking back, how normal things can feel even when something underneath has already broken. You keep doing the same things. The grocery run, the takeout Friday, the shared bed. And the routine holds the shape of something intact even when the inside is hollow. I'm not sure either of us was happy. I think we were just used to each other. And maybe that was the problem. One afternoon in mid-February, I came home earlier than expected. A meeting had been canceled. I let myself in and the apartment was quiet. Serena's car was gone. I went to the kitchen, made coffee, and sat down at the table. Her laptop was open. I didn't touch it. I want to be clear about that. I sat 2 feet away from it and drank my coffee and looked out the window. But the screen hadn't gone dark yet. And from where I was sitting, I could see the top of the screen. A messaging app. Open. The last message visible in the thread. I didn't read it fully. I wasn't trying to read it. But 2 words caught my eye before I looked away. Next Tuesday. That was all I saw. I got up, rinsed my cup, went to the bedroom and changed out of my work clothes. I don't know, maybe like this story or subscribe or something. Anyway, she came home an hour later with groceries and a good mood. I helped put things away. We made dinner together. She was funny that evening, relaxed in a way she hadn't been in weeks. I smiled when she made me smile, and I started paying closer attention. I need to be honest about how I found out. It wasn't some elaborate investigation. I didn't hire anyone. I didn't go through her phone in the middle of the night. What happened was much simpler and much less dramatic. Serena left her phone on the bathroom counter on a Saturday morning while she was in the shower. It buzzed twice. I was walking past. The notifications were visible on the lock screen. The app preview was turned on. The name was Marcus. The message read, "Transfer came through, same as last time. Tuesday works." That was it. I kept walking. I sat on the edge of the bed and I thought about that message for about 3 minutes. Just those 2 sentences. Transfer came through, same as last time. Tuesday works. I'm not someone who leaps to conclusions. I know that sounds like what everyone says right before they describe leaping to a conclusion. But I genuinely went through other explanations. A collaborative project, a shared client, some kind of payment split for work they'd done together. But there was the receipt, and the bag, and the coat, and the perfume, and the Tuesday and Thursday mornings, and the clothes she wore on those mornings. and the next Tuesday on the laptop screen. And something that had been sitting in the back of my chest for 4 months finally moved forward. I didn't say anything that day. I waited. Not because I was afraid, because I wanted to be sure. Because if I was going to do something, I wanted to do it completely, and I wanted to do it right. The following Tuesday, I told my manager I had a doctor's appointment and left work at 10. I drove to the coffee shop 2 blocks from our apartment, the one Serena sometimes worked from. She wasn't there. I drove past the restaurant in the arts district she'd mentioned, the rebrand client. Her car was in the lot. I parked across the street. I'm not proud of what I did next. I waited. About 40 minutes, I didn't go in. I just sat there. She came out at 11:15 with a man, mid-40s, well-dressed. They stopped on the sidewalk and she laughed at something he said. He touched her arm, just briefly, just above the elbow, and she didn't move away. He got in a Mercedes. She got in her Hyundai, the one I leased, the one I paid for every month. I drove back to work. I sat through a 2-hour logistics call in the afternoon. I answered emails. I ate the sandwich I'd packed. And that evening I came home and made dinner and we ate across from each other, and she told me the rebrand project was going well. "Client's really happy," she said. "Good," I said. I didn't sleep much that night. By Wednesday I had made my decision. I want to be clear, I didn't make it in anger. I didn't make it in some surge of emotion at 2 in the morning. I made it the way I made most decisions in my life. Quietly, with a clear head. I thought about what I knew, what I could prove, what I wanted FLF to look like, and what staying would cost me. And I decided that whatever this was, whatever arrangement Serena had built for herself, I was not willing to fund it anymore. Not with money, not with my name on a car lease, not with my silence. On Thursday, I called a lawyer, got a referral from a colleague who had been through a divorce 3 years earlier. On Friday, I called the leasing company. The car was in my name. That part was simple. I explained I needed to initiate a voluntary repossession. They confirmed the process, gave me a date. The following Monday night, Serena went to bed around 11. I stayed up. I moved her personal items, her purse, her phone, her keys, from where she usually left them. I left everything accessible. I wasn't trying to trap her. I was just done. At 2 in the morning, a tow truck came. I watched from the living room window, the lights off. The car was gone by 2:15. I went back to bed, slept 4 hours, got up, made coffee. Serena came downstairs at 7:30, dressed, ready for what I assumed was another Tuesday. She opened the front door. She stood there for a moment. Then she closed it and turned around. "Victor," she said. "I know," I said, just that. 2 words. I didn't explain. I didn't list everything. I just looked at her and she looked at me, and something between us closed like a door that had been swinging open for months, finally finding its frame. She started to speak. Something about explaining. About how it wasn't what I thought, about how she had been going to tell me. I put my coffee cup down. "I filed on Monday," I said. "You'll get the paperwork." She went very still. Then she said, "You can't do this," and I said, "I already did." I picked up my bag and my keys and I went to work. The calls started that afternoon. 7. By the time I got home, I didn't answer most of them. The ones I did pick up, I kept short. "I'm not doing this over the phone, Serena." "Then come home." "I am home." "You can stay until the end of the month. The paperwork is coming." She stayed for 9 more days. We lived in the apartment together during that time in a way I still find hard to describe. Not hostile, not tearful, just quiet and very deliberate. We navigated the kitchen, the bathroom, the hallway, with the careful distance of strangers who are both aware the other person is there. She made one real attempt to talk to me on the 4th day. She sat across from me at the table, the same table we'd eaten at for 3 years, and she said, "I need you to understand something." I said, "Okay." She told me it wasn't a relationship. She said Marcus was not someone she had feelings for. She said it was a financial arrangement. That they had met through someone she knew, that it had started small, and that she had kept it from me because she knew I wouldn't understand. I listened. I let her finish. Then I said, "Did you think I wouldn't notice?" She said, "I thought you'd chosen not to." And the strange thing was that almost landed, because it wasn't entirely wrong. I had noticed. I had chosen, for a while, not to look directly at it. So I understood what she meant. But there's a difference between someone giving you time to catch up and someone counting on you to never arrive. I said, "I want you to be honest about one thing." She said, "What? How long?" She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "About 8 months. 8 months. The freelance clients. The Tuesday morning calls, the bags and the coat and the perfume. 8 months of something I had been told was something else." I nodded. I didn't say anything more. I got up and went to the other room and closed the door. I've thought about that conversation a lot. What she said and what she didn't say. The part that stayed with me wasn't the confession. It was the way she framed it, as if the problem was that I wouldn't understand. Not that it was wrong, not that she had done something she was ashamed of, but that I specifically wouldn't have the capacity to accept it. I found that interesting. She moved out on a Thursday. Her sister came with a van and they took the furniture Serena had brought into the marriage. Her clothes, her design equipment. I helped carry 2 boxes down the stairs. We didn't talk much. At the door, her sister gave me a look I didn't know how to read. Not hostile. Maybe something like pity, or maybe just discomfort. Serena turned around before she got to the car. "You didn't have to do it that way," she said. "About the car, I think." I said, "I know." She waited like there was more coming. There wasn't. She left. The apartment felt big after that. Not in a bad way exactly, just spacious in a way it hadn't been in years. I rearranged the living room that weekend, moved the couch to face the window, made it feel more like mine. I called my mother on Sunday and we talked for a while about nothing much. She didn't know yet about the divorce. I didn't tell her that day. I just wanted to hear someone familiar. I went back to work the following Monday and kept going. There were hard days. I won't pretend otherwise. There were evenings I sat in that newly rearranged living room and felt the weight of 3 years of something I'd wanted to be real and wasn't. Not grief, exactly. More like the feeling of waking up in a place you don't recognize and taking a minute to remember how you got there. I thought about what I could have done differently, and I kept arriving at the same answer. Not much, maybe asked earlier, maybe pushed harder when things didn't add up. But I had trusted her, and that wasn't the wrong thing to do. It was just the wrong person to do it with. I've thought about this a lot. The part that complicated my feelings for a while was the financial arrangement she described. The way she told it. She wasn't in love with anyone. She wasn't building us life with someone else. She was just taking money from a man, while I paid the bills and leased the car and believed the explanations. I don't know if that makes it better or worse. In some ways it doesn't matter. What it changed between us was the same either way. I might be remembering some of this wrong. Memory does that, smooths the edges, reshuffles the order. But the facts of what happened, I'm clear on. The facts I checked twice in my own way before I moved. What I'm less certain about is whether Serena ever fully understood why I reacted the way I did. I don't think she expected me to be so still about it, so calm. I think she expected a different version of me, one she could argue with, one she could wear down, one who might eventually be persuaded that what she'd done was complicated rather than simple. She may have been right about one thing. I'm not the kind of person who makes a lot of noise. But silence isn't the same as absence. I had been paying attention the whole time. The divorce was finalized about 5 months later. No contested hearing, no dramatic back and forth. Serena signed, I signed. My lawyer handled the rest. It was about as undramatic as the whole thing had been, which, looking back, was maybe the point. I don't have a story about running into her. I don't have a moment where we talked it out fully or found closure in some clean, finished way. What I have is a Tuesday, about 3 weeks after she moved out, when I drove past the lot of the restaurant in the Arts District. Her car wasn't there, but I noticed I looked. That was the last time I looked for that car. After the divorce, I stayed in the apartment for a few more months and then found a smaller place closer to work. 1 bedroom, lower rent, a kitchen window that looks out onto a street with trees. It's quieter. I like it. I went back to the routines I'd always had. Work, Sunday groceries. Takeout when I didn't feel like cooking. I started running again, something I'd dropped a couple years into the marriage when there was always something else to do. In the mornings, before work, just 30 minutes. It helped. My mother found out eventually. She was careful about it, the way she always was. She didn't push. Just said she was sorry and asked if I was okay, and I said I was, and she said she believed me. A friend from work asked me once over lunch what I was going to do differently next time. I thought about it for a moment. "I don't know," I said. "Ask more questions, maybe." He nodded like that made sense. I'm not sure it fully does. There's a version of this story where I should have been more suspicious earlier, where I should have asked about the bags and the coat and the perfume and the restaurant receipt right when I found it, where I should have said, out loud, "This doesn't add up." Maybe. But I also think there's something to be said for giving people the chance to be who you believe they are. That's not weakness. It's just what trust looks like before it runs out. I think about Serena sometimes. Not often. Not with anger. I wonder if she found a version of the life she was looking for, one that didn't require the kind of management she'd been doing with me. I wonder if she's honest with the next person. I genuinely don't know. I'm not optimistic about it, but I'm not rooting against her either. She made choices. So did I. Sometime after the divorce was finalized, I was cleaning out a jacket, a different jacket, one from the back of the closet, and I found a folded receipt in the pocket. For a second, my chest did something. Then I unfolded it. It was mine. A hardware store from 2 years ago. Light bulbs and a pack of batteries. I folded it back up and threw it away. And I stood there in the hallway for a moment, the same hallway, the same position, and I thought about how long I'd been carrying the weight of something I told myself I didn't see. It was done now. I turned off the light and went to bed, and the apartment was quiet. Just mine.